Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 o'clock and it is time to start our webinar today. It looks like some people are still joining, so let's give 1 minute to get a few more folks on, and then we will get started. In the meantime, I want to welcome you guys to CRA's next webinar in our Recycling Resilience series, Drop-Off Programs, Getting It Right. We're excited to have you today. We really appreciate you joining. Folks are popping on here, so let's give another minute. For those of you who don't know me, I am Mary Mcclellan. I am the Executive Director of the Carolina Recycling Association, and I am glad to be here. And Happy New Year to all of you as well. May 2021 bring really good things to all of you. Okay, folks. We are going to get going now. So, welcome to the webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the Carolina Recycling Association, and we are in partnership today with Chatham County, North Carolina, Wake County, North Carolina, and Rowan County, North Carolina. I'd like to give a special thanks to our Carolina Recycling Association Education and Outreach Committee. This is a wonderful committee that works very, very hard to bring all of the recycling resilience webinars that we have done over this past year or so, and many other wonderful programs coming from CRA come directly out of this committee. So if you are interested in serving on this committee or one of our other wonderful committees, it's a great experience professionally and personally, and we love to have new members, new perspectives, helping us do our good work. So please reach out if you're interested. I'd like to take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors, without whom these events would not be possible. If you are interested in sponsoring CRA, please reach out to us. We won't turn you away. We really appreciate all of these wonderful sponsors. Please take a moment to look at them and see who is supporting education and outreach in the Carolinas through CRA. A couple of housekeeping items for you. You are all muted and in listen only mode, and it will likely stay that way. We appreciate you going along with that. This event will be recorded and it will be available after the webinar. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, so after the presentations. Please go ahead and share your questions in the question box that is located on your GoToWebinar dashboard, right where I am. Guys, I just realized my screen share didn't work. This should help a bit. All right, here we go. Let me show you our sponsors again. Let's try this again. Now I think my screen is showing. Sponsors here on the slide. Thank you so much. Sorry we missed you the first go round. Housekeeping. So here is the Q&A box. On the right side of your screen, you can see where it says questions. That's where you can type in any and all questions that you might have for our speakers and moderator. So please do so. We are also going to have some audience polling during this. So when there is a poll, you will see it take over your screen. You'll have the ability to respond to the poll, and then the results will be tallied and displayed live instantly. So please enjoy participating in the polls. There will be several. And as I mentioned, a recording of this will be available by early next week, and we will also email it to you directly. It just takes several hours for the recordings to process. So be on the lookout for that in the next few days to come directly to your email, or you can check our website for that. So I'd like to hand it over now to our moderator, who is Shannon Culpepper. And Shannon, if you could turn on your camera. I'm going to turn mine off when I get you on screen here.
Hello.
Hello, and thank you so much, Shannon. I'm going to say bye-bye for now.
Thank you. So yeah, as Mary said, my name's Shannon Culpepper. I work for Chatham County Solid Waste and Recycling as the Recycling and Education Specialist. It's quite a mouthful, I know. If you're not familiar with Chatham County, we are south of Chapel Hill and west of Raleigh, so kind of right in the middle of North Carolina. And today we have two wonderful speakers from Wake County and Rowan County, and to talk to you about convenience centers. And I'll throw some stuff in from Chatham from time to time as well. We did originally have a third speaker for this session from Beaufort County, South Carolina, but the person who was going to present has actually left that position since we first advertised for the webinar, and the director, Cindy Carter, is unable to take her place right now because they just started a decal program January 2nd. So they're just really inundated with that right now, but we are going to try the E&O committee to have Cindy talk about that whole process on a future webinar. But if you want to reach out to them, if you have specific questions for them, then you can reach out to Cindy Carter, the director of solid waste there. So as Mary said, we'll have all the questions at the end, but to get started, we just wanted to learn a little bit about who's here. So we have two polls, so Mary's going to get those up for us. And the first one is, what's your greatest challenge within your community's collection centers, convenience centers, whatever you call them, drop-off centers, all mean the same thing. So we were only limited to 5 choices. We know there might be more, but go ahead and select what you would think would be your greatest challenge. All right, we'll leave this up here for just about a minute so people have a chance to answer. And please, if you think of something that isn't on here, you can put it as a question. We could talk about it later at the end. Because we don't have a third speaker, we will have plenty of time for questions later on. So. You never know how long a minute is until you're on webinar. Cool. And I'm not in charge of the time. Oh, excellent. Thank you. So great. Wow. Okay. So signage, compliance with signage contamination is high up there, and then followed by bin or capacity management, staffing, and then keeping others out. So COVID-19 was not selected at all. So that's really interesting. So we have a second poll as well. So have reductions in municipal recycling programs affected your collection center volume? So the idea here is, if you're a county or some type of municipality that has other municipalities inside, and they've, changed their curbside program, programs, how has those changes impacted your drop-off centers? So we have about 30 more seconds on this poll. Just waiting for some more people to vote here. Excellent, thank you. Quite a few people have seen an increase in volume of some kind. Obviously not applicable, maybe that doesn't happen to them, or they're here and they don't manage drop-off fields. So excellent. Thank you, Mary, for managing those polls. So we'll come back to some of that later, either in the presentations might touch on it, or we can come back to it in the questions. So we're going to start with Caleb Sinclair with Rowan County. And Caleb is the Environmental Management Director. He's been at Rowan County for over 13 years, he thinks. And yeah, Caleb's going to talk to us all about what Rowan County is doing. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to speak with you and present today on the topic of getting convenience center collections right. As Shannon mentioned, I've been with Rowan County for more than 13 years. My title is Director of Solid Waste Services here in Rowan County. Much of my career has been on the recycling side of this solid waste equation, and you know, the recycling component is near and dear to me. Just a plug for CRA. Early in my career, when I was recycling coordinator for Rowan County, I joined CRA, and I remember my very first in-person, not virtual, experience at a CRA event was at the Sheridan in Charlotte, North Carolina, right down the road from here in Rowan. You know, I walked into this room full of professionals that, you know, just were so gracious from my first experience. And I really feel that CRA is such a strong supporter of local governments and their ambitions to move forward this recycling ball. And can't say enough about the CRA and the good work that they do. So again, thank you, CRA. Thank you, Mary and Shannon, for inviting me this afternoon rather. You know, the title of this event is Getting It Right. And I'm not going to be so bold to say Rowan County Solid Waste Division is getting recycling centers right 100%. But what I can do is share with you our story, and hopefully, you know, you'll see some things that we're doing that might apply to your model, or that you can apply to your model to help you be more successful. And of course, this is a two-way street. I look forward to speaking with you and answering your questions, and maybe learning a bit from your operations. So again, thank you. And let's move on to let's see if I can get these slides moving. So our solid waste program is really has three components. One is our landfill operation. Rowan County has an MSW landfill. We have 6 currently active recycling and solid waste convenience centers. And we do also have a processing center, which is a warehouse operation where we bale collected materials from our convenience centers. I think the processing center element is super advantageous for us. It's really made possible for Rowan County to weather this down market storm in terms of recycling, and we'll get a little more into that as we go forward. But just realize that, you know, the landfill sort of operation funds what we do on our recycling side of the equation, and the processing center sort of is our ace in the hole, and I'll flesh that out as we go. Okay, how did we get to where we are now? You know, pre-1970s and then sort of in the 70s, or up until the 70s, Rowan County had really no program. This was pre-Subtitle D landfills, trench and bury, old school solid waste mismanagement, I would argue. Now there was a time where the county decided we needed to have some convenient locations for folks to dispose of their bagged household waste. So 8-yard containers were deployed throughout the county, wherever. These were not staffed, these were just containers. And as you can imagine, that does not work for many reasons, as you can see on the slide. Of course, they weren't revenue generators. Folks would scavenge, and ultimately folks would pile up garbage, and it becomes a health hazard at this point. So when that problem sort of materialized, somebody had a great idea that we should put fences around these facilities and staff them and have designated hours of operation. So that was a huge leap forward in solid waste management for the county. What we did fail to integrate at that moment was recycling. Recycling hadn't really hit the scene. And what ushered in recycling for Rowan County was the construction of the first Subtitle D line landfill. Rowan County was the first actual permit recipient to build a line landfill facility in the state. We were second to construct, I think, behind New Hanover County, who I believe was the first to build a modern engineered landfill. Again, the revenues from the landfill pay for what we do. It's interesting, I was working on our warehouse floor at our processing center at the mixed paper pile, and I looked down and I saw, if you can see the slide on your screen, this newspaper, and the newspaper is from 1989. The graphic there in the top left corner is the first line cell of our landfill facility. There were, local dignitaries and newspaper folks there to witness the first garbage load being dumped in the landfill, and you can't really see it, but underneath there's a black and white photo, and it's the first garbage truck load dumped in the cell. And so the headline could have read any number of things pertaining to engineered landfill facilities, but the headline is Landfill Incentive for Recycling. The way that piece reads, the reporter had overheard someone that was there to witness this event notice that there were recyclables in that load of garbage being dumped in the landfill. And so the thrust of that newspaper article was that there are recyclables down there and we need to get them out. So the political sort of machine starts to turn, and recycling makes its way to Rowan County. So those convenience centers that we now have fenced off and staffed now have to do a second job, right? And that's to collect these recyclable materials. And I believe they started with paper stuffs, the cardboard, the mixed paper. I believe we had office paper stock at that time, steel cans, aluminum cans. That was probably about it at the beginning of our recycling collection. So realize that these convenience centers, again, they were designed for MSW, for garbage only. So their footprints aren't necessarily adequate to include all of the containers you'll need for all of your different recyclable materials. But we made them work. You sort of have to work with what you have in local government. And we've really made the best of those situations. Let's see here. Here we go. So this slide will show you how our recycling centers are deployed throughout Rowan County. We have lost 2 of these locations recently. and I can talk you through that scenario as well. But we currently have 6 active convenience centers, 1 processing center where we also collect material, and of course the landfill facility itself. This is a pic of our recycling processing center where we haul our materials back for baling. This recycling processing center has been super advantageous. We collect materials source separated currently at our convenience centers. We're staffed. The staff does a fantastic job making sure those materials are clean. We get a second look when we tip them here at our processing center. And so and here's a look at the floor. We've got different bunkers where we dump the different materials. We have very high quality bales of material. So even during this time of, markets being really, really difficult to navigate, we have not had to divert any material as a solid waste to landfill. All of our material has consistently gone to recycling market folks, and we're very, very proud of that. And it seems to be the way to go for our current situation. Here's a pic of an operator. We have small loader equipment. We just scoop and put into the hoppers, and we make these bales of very clean materials. Here's an example of our material bales. That's, of course, is aluminum cans. Always like the way those look. Our processing center also doubles as our household hazardous waste collection event space. We do a number of those events throughout the year. The warehouse is large and it has huge roll-up bay doors on each end, so it's a drive-through event. It's undercover, out of the elements. These are always hugely successful. It also gives us a space for our education and outreach, sort of pre-COVID, and hopefully soon we'll get back to hosting in-person events for the local schools. We have 35 public schools here around us, and a number of colleges that like to pay us a visit from time to time. So we're not always getting it right. As you see, this is what happens when one of your haulers fails to put down the dump bed before he tries to leave your facility. So let's rewind a bit. So our centers, the current model is source separated. We handle cardboard, mixed paper, plastic bottles, number 1s and 2s only. We're commingling those. We find that it's easy to get those marketed. When you add the 3 through 7s, it's more complicated, and we just don't have the footprint on many of our sites right now to do the 3 through 7. But there was a time a few years ago when, of course, we were all sort of pushing to move to commingle, and we did at our convenience centers. Commingling allows you to free up space, right? You have to use less containers, arguably, and you can add materials. And we were able to add a 3 through 7 mix and cartons and some other materials when we were involved in commingle model recycling. Unfortunately, when the market sort of crashed for these materials due to the green fence or national sword scenario, we had to do a 180. We had to go back to our original source separated model, and it's always easy to add material in your convenience center programs. It's very, very difficult at times to go back to take materials out. We don't like to take materials out. Our aim is to continue to expand materials collection when markets are viable for those materials. We were very fortunate, and I think it was because we have been established for so long with the store separated model, that our citizens, users, they didn't give us too much pushback. And I credit the success, of our convenience centers on many fronts to our staff. We have paid, have benefited full-time staff at our convenience centers. Many of those centers are 6-day-a-week operations, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have a number of facilities that are open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Monday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our centers employ platform scales for bagged household waste. We collect rechargeable batteries, automotive batteries, electronics, all things but television sets. We take television sets at our processing center facility only. We've been able to provide that service free of charge. We take automotive fluids, motor oil, antifreeze, coolants, that kind of thing, at many of our locations. They really, I constantly we're messaging for our staff that, in local government, there are lots of scenarios where a citizen user can come, and like the tax office, for example, and it's not necessarily a warm fuzzy when you leave as an end user, but these convenience centers, you've got like-minded, well-intentioned folks bringing material to you, and so there's a connection already there. And so if you are well versed in recycling and not just what's within your fence, sort of, if you understand recycling globally and are willing to share that information with your citizens, that they can leave there with a smile on their face and be educated and help you spread the good message, right, of proper recycling. Here is an aerial view of one of our convenience centers. As you see, we have the traditional herringbone style concrete recessed walls there for backing up pickups for solid waste. We have the covered recycling containers for other recycling items, again, source separated. If you look far to the left on this slide, this last bunker on the left is actually our glass bunker. We collect bottled glass at all of our convenience centers, and we consolidate that glass at this particular site. We have been very, very fortunate to have a partnership with a glass recycler who also performs a bar and restaurant collection service, and we allow those folks to tip in our bunker, and our staff loads this out in a tractor trailer with a loader about once a month, and we have a very cost-effective solution to get our glass to a glass recycler. And just as not to for too much of a sidetrack, glass is such a problem, and I feel like we sort of are on top of this one, where a lot of folks don't have the opportunity to get glass handled properly. The glass that we collect is tipped at our partner facility, where it's smashed to a particular specification size, and of course it runs through a machine such as this optic sorter, the goal being to get this clear glass back out of this multicolored mix. The clear glass is really the feedstock for most of the glass-to-glass recycling that goes on. So we're very excited to have that relationship, and it's sort of been a long, hard road to get here. So again, I mentioned that we're down to 6 convenience centers. We have closed 2 of those centers recently due to other projects that the county has going on that sort of displaced some of our centers. We have architectural drawings to replace 2 of those centers. This is very exciting because it gives us the opportunity to actually build centers with a focus on materials, on recyclables particularly. We know that we want to build not just for the demand that we have today, but for the future of our program. So we're citing these things large. We're focusing on traffic flow, on materials that we currently take, and on materials expansion for future opportunities. Again, traditional herringbone drop walls for solid waste, but we're also incorporating lots of compaction for obvious reasons, efficiencies for many of our recyclable materials. So what do you need to think about when you're citing new centers? Zoning concerns we've had to navigate. You want to look at the map and make sure you're serving sort of all the areas of your community, and be prepared to have some battles. These things get political quickly, and there's plenty of not in my backyard folks that don't want, they hear solid waste or recycling and they don't want it anywhere near them. They want access, but they don't want it in their neighborhood. So you have to sort of smartly locate these facilities, and I would encourage anyone who has an opportunity to go ahead and start thinking about where's a good location for future expansion, and try to begin that conversation within your jurisdiction now, even if you don't plan on building this year or next year, because space gets harder to find as the longer we wait, as populations increase. So how do you get, your best tool for successful convenience center operations is your staff. And it sounds cliche, but your staff is your liaison to the public. Again, you have well-intended folks that are making the effort to do the right thing. And if you can encourage your folks to build relationships with your clientele, I tell my folks all the time that 50% of what we do is make friends, right? Public relations with our community. It's really a unique opportunity to interface with the public. We have more contact hours, I would argue, than any other division of our local government with the public, and your people make the difference. So that's sort of our story. Went too far there. When COVID happened in April, our flagship convenience center had to close abruptly, April 1st. And then COVID happened. And one of the unforeseen results of the COVID was an increase in solid waste volumes. Folks were home and they cleaned out their garages. And so mom and pop's solid waste tonnage went through the roof. And so our convenience centers got hammered. And so we lost our flagship center. We pivoted by increasing the hours of operation and accessibility at some of our other centers. We were able to expand those hours, absorb the folks from the center we had to close while we await building our new centers. And then also we got hit with this increase in tons of recyclables and solid waste items. And then thirdly, we have municipalities. We have 11 municipalities in Rowan County 9 of which were offering some form of curbside service. And many of those programs, those curbside programs, really July 1 of this year have really throttled back on either providing the service at all, or they've eliminated, say, glass from the curbside roll carts. So we've been partnering with our municipalities and encouraging them to help promote Rowan County convenience centers as their option, say, for your glass bottles. You know, recycling centers are the last sort of front for recycling in your community. I encourage, you know, everyone to promote the curbside programs and support the curbside programs. But you really need to build out a strong convenience center infrastructure because we're sort of the last line of recycling defense infrastructure, if you understand what I'm saying. It's so important to always think about your centers. Don't just take them for granted. Be flexible when you're planning your centers. You know, if you have an opportunity to add a material, don't be afraid to try it. Just because it's challenging doesn't mean it's not, you know, something you ought to shoot for. So that's pretty much all I have for you right now. I look forward to your questions, and I hope I've shared something of value.
Thanks, Caleb. You left it on a super positive note there. Good job. One clarifying question. I apologize if you said it and I missed it though, Caleb, but are your staff county employees?
Yes, they are. They benefited full-time employees. We're so fortunate to have that in our pocket because you know, I understand that many folks are using subcontractors or you know, it's part-time only. You know, I have lots of staff that are senior folks. They are the greatest resource. I worry sometimes because it's such a physical job that some of our folks are, you know, stressed to the max. But you know, having the ability to have a benefited full-time employee at these convenience centers makes a lot of difference.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks again, Caleb, for your presentation. We'll see you again when we get to questions. So next up we have Joe Fitzpatrick, who's with Wake County. He's the Recycling and Compliance Coordinator. He's been in Wake County for 3 years. Many of you might remember that prior to that, he did work for North Carolina DEQ and the DEEPS group. But yeah, he's here to talk to us all about Wake County's convenience center. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Caleb and Mary and everyone with CRA, and thank you for everybody attending today. And hopefully everybody's doing well and staying healthy. And I look forward to eventually seeing everybody again when we can all do these in person rather than you know, little speck of me on a screen. So so as far as the Wake County convenience centers, our centers are a little different and very similar to Rowan County's. Mary, I'm not getting this to advance right now. I don't know if I have control yet.
You should have control, Joe.
Right.
Try your arrows.
Yeah, I'm doing trying it. Yeah, we couldn't go through one of these without any sort of technical difficulties.
It's okay. I think it's working now. Try now.
Nope, still got nothing.
Okay, I'll advance them for you. Well, there it went.
Okay, I don't know if that was me or you. All right, so that was me. All right. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little background on our convenience centers, and then look at studies that our consultants done, on our convenience centers, whatever changes need to be done, mostly looking at the users, some of the results from those studies, and controls that we put in place based on that studies, and then looking at the future of controls, how we are affected in 2020, again, the new study, and then going in beyond and changing and trying to make our sites better every day. All right, Mary, here we go again. Mary, can you
Okay,
just,
let me take,
I'll
yeah.
give you controls and let you again.
Got it.
All right, so this is what our convenience centers look like. Here's a map of the county. These were built in the 80s and 90s. Prior to that, again, I wasn't here, but I think it was very similar with some drop box sites. There's 11 sites around the county. These are funded by a annual, what we call it the recycling fee. It's a fee that's attached to everybody's property tax bill. It's for any habitable structure. So if somebody owns a vacant lot in the county, they cannot use the facilities. It's only once there's a habitable structure on there that fee is assessed, and then residents can use that. This is charged on apartments, all multifamily facilities, as well as mobile home parks. No commercial entities are allowed to use our sites. They don't pay the fee. Facilities are open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. All the sites are set up to accept some of the same materials, including cardboard, mixed recycling, municipal solid waste. We take bag trash, and we also take bulky items, couches and mattresses and furniture. Those are all put into a pre-crusher and then shipped off to the landfill. All the sites take metal, clothing, oyster shells. And then we have 3 of our larger sites that are conjoined with what we call our multi-material use facilities. Those facilities take your used motor oil, pallets, antifreeze, electronics, and white goods. And then, of course, our household hazardous waste facilities that we have at 3 locations. Next. And out of the 6 out of the 11 convenience centers also accept construction and demolition waste. Those are more spread out throughout the county based on their location and some of the larger sites. 2 of the sites do accept electronics on the weekends only, and we have those staffed separately. And then 4 of the sites, we have, it's been around for about 4 years now. This, however, it's still called a pilot program. Those 4 sites accept food waste in carts, where we have Compost Now comes in and switches those carts out weekly. And then 1 of our convenience centers accepts white goods. Since these sites have been built, the county's population has tripled. So you can see there's always a demand and for expansion and looking at our facilities and looking at the users. Next. So in 2016, basically the county decided to do a control study to look at the users. This was all right before I started. Most of the focus was put on the sites that accept construction waste, and then they also looked at factoring how to control out-of-county waste and waste from contractors and commercial entities coming in. They reviewed the tonnages. They've also looked at capacity issues during holidays, which I'll go into more later. They did an on-site survey, and I'll cover those. And then the end of the goal of the study was identifying controls to reduce basically the unintended use of the facilities. Next. So yeah, and this is what a bigger map of what our sites look at. As you can see here, most of our sites are located somewhere near the border of the county, away from the incorporated areas. Again, when we looked at that 2016 study, a lot of that focus was eliminating the unintended use, and some of that unintended use is people coming from the bordering counties and using our facilities, whether based on some of those counties don't take bulky materials at their sites and they don't take C&D. So that's the biggest abuse items that we see. Next. So when we began that study, they looked at the tonnage. In 2011, C&D was segregated from the municipal solid waste at the 6 sites. Prior to that, it was all collected together in the pre-crushers and sent to the landfill. One of the reasons they looked at the study was between 2013 and 2015, the C&D tons increased by 20%. Again, that was at those sites that just kept it separated and, started looking at why is this increase going on. In one site, North Wake, which is off of Durant Road, if those of you that are familiar with Raleigh, that's where the old North Wake landfill used to be. So there they saw an increase of 74%. One of those factors is within 2 miles of that facility is a private C&D transfer station. So I think a lot of the contractors trying to come in there, get rid of their stuff for free that they have to pay for down the road. So you can see that increase in tons for C&D from 2011 at 5,600 tons to 2015 over 14,000 tons. Next. So this is just the disposal by year. You can see with the green line, if you combine the two, you can see, after 2010, 2011, when it was separated, and you can see that on that bottom there, that C&D line, that continual growth. So that's what just those numbers look like visually. Next. Again, I mentioned the other thing they looked at were capacity issues with holidays. Prior to that study, the convenience centers were only closed on Thanksgiving and Christmas. The county also operates a landfill and a transfer station. Those facilities were also closed on New Year's Day, Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and Labor Day. So through this study, we looked and discovered, when those other facilities are closed, and some of these holidays fall on Monday every year, that meant that the landfill and transfer station were closed for 2 days in a row. Meanwhile, the convenience centers were open. There was no place for 2 days to send that material, so you had a backlog. So that was one of the things that they went through the study to look at, how to make that better, and to actually change that to add those additional holidays for the convenience centers. Next. So we did the on-site surveys where they had consultants out there. I think most of this was whatever interns they had in their office went out there and did on-site surveys. One of the control things they looked at was limiting what type of vehicles, particularly box trucks and dual axle trailers. Some of these larger vehicles coming in there, and some of these sites aren't the biggest space to maneuver a vehicle around. And then just control the amount of materials that were coming in based on those larger vehicles. All these survey results, they asked, if people would basically be fine if these weren't allowed, if C&D was only collected on the weekends, if the county added some more video equipment, if they had a sheriff on site to control some of these issues for unattended use, a sticker program, and then additional holiday closures. You can see that 97% of users are okay with those additional holiday closures. Next. So here's if you go back one more, Mary, forgot about that pop-up. So as you can see, the cost impacts from that study, again, we look at the unintended use. This is what we found, that from commercial or out of county waste, we were looking at $400,000 to $500,000 a year in cost for that unattended use. Okay, now I'm ready. So as I mentioned, the study conclusion, you saw the highest results and what people were okay with was the additional holidays, and okay with limiting the dual axle trailers and box trucks from being able to use the sites. Next. So following the study, the county put in what we call our trash pass program. That went into effect April 30th of 2018. My first day was April 23rd. So basically I had a week to learn all this and get things going and hit the ground with this new program. So this began, like mentioned, from the study focusing on box trucks and dual axle trailers. Part of that study that they found that, the people that were coming from commercial or contractors, these were the kind of vehicles they use. So this was put in place as a tool to go ahead and verify the person was a resident, and then also verify if they had construction waste that they are a homeowner, because we only take construction materials from homeowners. So they would pull into the site, we're given a flyer, they go apply online, and then to control the use and tracking of the pass, we required the printed pass be given to the site attendant at the convenience centers. Next. So this is an example of what the original pass looked at like. When they designed this, they had kept it in mind that, a lot of these contractors coming in with C&D, we needed to control them. So if they needed to go somewhere else, they put that locations for where the private facilities where they could take that C&D on there. We gave them this flyer with where they could apply, a phone number they can call if they needed to, and then we started off. You can see on the bottom, the original pass started off with allowing 5 business days for the passes to be processed, which was our #1 complaint right from the beginning. So that was one of the things that we looked at and adjusted. Next. So once people apply for the pass and receive it, this is what they receive. They get a PDF and an email. We put on there the listing of the approved materials. They're sent an email with instructions to bring this printed pass along with an ID and any other verification, whether it be their driver's license or utility bill that shows proof of residency that matches the name and address of the user of the pass. Each pass is good for 7 days, and that person can use it 3 times during that 7-day. During the first year of the program, we received over 1,300 passes. The passes that come in, it still to this day remains the same. Roughly 25% or so don't get approved. So only about 3/4 of the ones that come in are people that actually verify that they do check out. They are the resident. They're not coming from a business. They're not coming from out of county. They're not a contractor. And these are what we see, that 71% of them had box trucks. 42% of them had C&D. You can see 114 passes for C&D were denied. The highest month we had in that first year was March with 172. And then so many out of county. To this date, there's been over 5,500 passes requested. Next. So this is kind of the trend that we saw after the first one. With the focus being on trying to cut down in the amount of C&D, we did see, some percent change. Not kind of the spike that we thought we'd see, but we did actually see more municipal solid waste cut out, which I did find out. A lot of that was, the moving companies, or these kind of, independent haulers or whoever with the moving company. We kind of eliminated them out, so we did actually see more of a decrease in the municipal solid waste than we expected. And kind of what we expected with the C&D, but we actually thought we'd see more. So next. So we did, after the first year, start looking at some changes that were needed. As I mentioned earlier on that flyer, you saw the posted turnaround time was 5 business days. We've changed that down to please allow 2 business days. And then recently, as much as this week, we actually eliminated that verbiage from the flyers going forward and from our website, where we just put, passes are reviewed and received, or received and reviewed 7 days a week. Once we receive it, we'll process it and turn around as quickly as possible, because that was still the #1 complaint that we received from residents. That was, I have this box truck I rented for the day. I need this pass today. Otherwise, it's going to cost me X number of dollars for another day. How do I get this quicker? So hopefully that will eliminate that one complaint. When we started off on the flyer, we didn't have the approved materials on there. That was something we started and added because we found out people were requesting it. They may have listed an apartment address, but then they're showing up with nothing but a truckload of construction material. So we added that on there to kind of eliminate people trying to abuse the pass itself. We changed the pass collection procedure. At first, when it started, since they can use it 3 times during that 7-day period, the pass was given back to the user. Now they're just held at the site, and the person could, when they come back, the pass is there for them. So they can't try to make copies of it, make fakes, which has happened. So we collected that. And then in January, after the first year, we added all enclosed trailers, because we found that some contractors were still using those vehicles. Some of these contractors were coming in with these enclosed trailers. You open it up, it was like an entire workshop inside this trailer. So we added that. And then again, improved the outreach. We worked with the local realtors and our communications people to try to get the word out to realtors and to apartment management complexes. So we did find out there was definitely a rush on pass requests at the beginning and the end of every month, with everybody trying to move at that time as leases expired. Next. Again, looking at unintended users, besides the pass, the county also has some additional controls. What you see here is a waste verification form. As I mentioned before, we only take construction material from homeowners. So we have our site attendants give these out, and anybody can be asked to sign it. We have this in English and Spanish. We actually use a 2-sided form that people are asked to provide their address. They select where they're coming from, what type of materials we have, and then those are reviewed for home ownership when they're bringing construction material. We also use that as a tracking mechanism to see how often people are using the sites. If we see somebody potentially showing up, 4 days a week and they're bringing nothing but furniture, and unless they're really don't like their furniture they buy every other day, there's a good chance they're probably a hauler, and we need to look at that further. We develop a contractor list, which the people that we verify that they're a business or they're not a homeowner, they go on that list, which is provided to the attendants and tracked by the vehicle license plate. And if they do come back, they're then turned away and told where they can take their materials that they're not allowed to dump at our facilities. On-site checks, a lot of that is part of my job, to be on site, and then some of our other workers to be on some of our site leads that are our site attendants will also do checks on site. We use sheriffs and then add additional video surveillance at some of the sites. Next. So going into, we put all this stuff into place to kind of control the users of the sites. And then, this year, our focus started changing with, COVID comes along. Like most other sites, and Caleb mentioned it, everybody was cleaning out everything. With everybody being home, everybody decided to do a cleanup project or redo a deck or whatever they're going to do because they had time on their hands. And one of the only stores that were open were grocery stores and home improvement stores. So that's where everybody went and decided to do something new. So our line started, I'm sure everybody who does have drop-offs know that on Saturdays is usually a line, but our lines every day of the week turned into a Saturday line. With the trash patch request that came in, like I said, that first year, we had 1,300 requests when COVID started and the stay-at-home order went out. Our passes, the number of requests went to that same 1,300 in a 4-month period rather than spread out throughout the year. Some of them, I think one week we actually had 200 requests in 1 week. So our sites had to go shift modes and prioritize for only collecting municipal solid waste. Well, not only collecting, but to focus that make sure we had capacity to take municipal solid waste. So with that, some of the drivers had to focus on making sure we could take that, which meant there was going to be delays in changing out those construction and demolition bins. So if somebody does have that option, if they didn't want to wait, they can go to one of those private facilities. At one point, our haulers decided, they may be beneficial to delay opening on Sunday to kind of help catch up. That was a miserable failure with the amount of lines that people were showing up at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning and trying to just decide they were just going to wait at the site till noon. So we only did that for about a month. And then, of course, along with everything going on, a lot of the number one complaint that went to was masks. So we get calls about the attendants not wearing masks, other people using the site not wearing masks. So that is still ongoing. Next. I mentioned, oh, one more, there we go. So this is kind of like what we saw with these numbers. The top one is our cardboard, for fiscal year 2019 by each month, and then 20, and you can see for cardboard that big jump in May with everybody being home and ordering everything online. You can see that percent change there. Same with the solid waste at the height of everything going on. The increase of over 1,000 tons of municipal solid waste coming in May. So that's kind of where we're at in dealing with that. And, all those going into November, everything's still higher with the waste. So with the cardboard is still similar. Waste is still the same. Recycling, really, those numbers went up. Caleb mentioned the municipalities were in his county with their changes. None of the municipalities here have made changes, so we're still kind of okay with everybody picking up curbside here. So we really didn't see much of a drastic increase like these numbers with recycling, but there was an increase, and a lot of that was beer and wine bottles mostly. Next. So as we continue on, we are actually getting ready and currently have another study going on to look forward with the continued growth within Wake County. We're still focused on C&D. One of the things that we're looking at is possibly limiting days with adding focus on some of those border sites. We may actually pilot a plate reader on one of the border sites that doesn't take C&D but only takes municipal waste, that to put a plate reader there because they border a couple other counties to see how we can control that. Again, continuing to look at out of county waste and contractors. And then we're open 7 days a week. To one of the part of the current study is, if we did close on Sundays, because I think all but Shannon's county, every county that borders us is closing on Sunday, and then additional holiday closures to possibly end up an add-on closing on Easter. Next. So I think there's going to be a poll question. Yeah, here's the poll question popping up. If you have drop-offs, are you open on Sundays? Yes or no, if that doesn't apply. So that's one of the things that we want to add to some feedback for our study. So if you could take a minute and just place your response there. A lot of this is for our own feedback and that we can talk with our consultant tomorrow, actually.
30 more seconds. Still got responses coming in.
All right. And I appreciate everybody's feedback. And I'm almost done.
Six seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right. All right. Wow. Actually, I thought it'd be higher than that, or that more would be closed. So I appreciate that. If you can go to the next slide. All right. All right. So future growth. If anybody remembers the map of our facilities spread out. In the future, we're going to expand to our Morrisville site, which is our most western site. Right now, that is one of our smallest sites. We're actually expanding that site, working with the town to have a more regional center. Like I mentioned before, 3 of our sites that are conjoined with multi-material and HHW, we're going to do the same with the Morrisville site. When that happens, what we will have is a North Wake, East Wake, South Wake, and Western Wake, basically, for better term, super centers that will take multi-material, HHW, and solid waste and C&D. So basically, they'll provide a drop-off location for every material that we collect right now. So we'll basically have 4 regional centers. One of the things we looked at possibly doing was mattress grinding to remove that from the issue of that at our landfill with how much space those take up. That was, I believe that was actually in our budget for this year, but due to COVID constraints, that was one of the things that was removed. So we're always looking to improve our services and try to make something, that a resident doesn't have to go too far to be able to find a home for. So next. All right, so I think with that, I'm done, and we'll open it up for Caleb and I to take any questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Joe. Caleb, if you can turn your video and microphone back on. Joe, same question for you real quick. Your staff is subcontracted through Waste Industries, I believe.
Yeah, they're all contracted out through Waste Industries, now GFL. They manage our convenience centers, the 2 of the multi-material facilities, and then we also use Greenway Waste for the 2 convenience centers that we use that take electronics, and then our East Wake multiple material facility.
Excellent. And we use Greenway as well. They staff our convenience centers. So we do have questions for you guys. Exciting. So let's start with one for Caleb specifically. And yes, please, if you have any more questions, go ahead and put them in there. We have about 20 minutes left together, so lots of time. Caleb, when you guys had to close the 2 centers, what kind of impacts did you see on the residents in terms of, this is the one I use all the time, I have to go further, and kind of how did you communicate to residents that was happening and those kinds of things?
Absolutely. We, as things happen to us, right? We had a week. We had 7 days heads up from a commissioner, meeting until the April 1 thou shalt Actually, I rewind. We had 30 days.
Oh,
But you know, we immediately began the messaging. You know, within that 30-day window, we ran newspaper, you know, ad, article. We established signage, quick turnaround on signage, and we did sort of paper cardstock handouts, you know, to announce here is the closure of the site, the announcing of the closure of the site, and the new plan, which was to open the peripheral sites for more hours. And yes, we got some folks upset with us. In fact, it's kind of crazy. Still, we up until 2 weeks ago, we had a sign on the gate out there giving a number to call for recycling options, you know, for convenience center options. We'll have folks, you know, call the number and say, well, I haven't been, you know, I use this site all the time, is the comment, but of course they hadn't used it in 10 months, right? So, but you know, all in all, it went fairly smoothly considering our quick turnaround. You know, ideally, we were in the progress of establishing a replacement site already. So, you know, the engineering design part was already underway. And then this sort of happened for us. Ideally, we would want to close down one day and next shift open up at our new convenience center. But you know, life happens, and that just didn't work out for us. So, short answer: yes, we got some pushback from the public. The end of that story is we got through it without too much grief. And again, I'll emphasize that your convenience center staff is going to bear the brunt of that. Your success is based on their ability to communicate to those members of the community. You know, give them the big picture. You know, give them all the information in a positive way. And usually, folks, if they're given the enough information, they'll come around. You know.
yeah. Joe, question for you. Two questions related to C and D. So one is my question. But when you're saying that you don't accept it, you know, you're limited to the weekends, do you physically remove those bins from the centers or have a sign? How do you stop people?
No, currently the 6 sites that do take it they take it 7 days a week.
Oh,
That was part of the thing, looking into the future, that maybe, you know, limit it to just the weekends, because what they're really there for is the, you know, the weekend warriors that are doing stuff on their house, not, you know, Mr. Handyman who wants to slide in there on his way home from work on a Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, got it. So general question. Some municipalities are considering creating glass drop-off sites, manned or unmanned. What advice would you give them in their efforts? My advice would be to man them.
Oh, yeah, always have everything manned.
Yeah, if you don't have it manned, you're gonna get everything you don't want, from a dead deer to a carburetor. I don't know. You're gonna, you've got to have it manned.
Yeah, just think of that dumpster behind the apartment building that collects everything that won't fit in it.
Yeah.
This with a glass bin.
Yeah. Any other advice?
Make sure you have a market first before you put your bins out.
True.
And messaging, you know, don't you know, short yourself by not. You know, I know it can be costly, but find a way to continue a very concise and clear message. That's, of course, is key.
So Caleb, this question would be probably more specifically to you. Well, a couple questions, but what's the biggest challenge you're facing when it comes to recycling plastics? What are pros and cons of the current plastic recycling technology? I don't know if you can really speak to that, but.
So a couple of things. As I said, you know, we're collecting 1 and 2s only in the plastic. And so my biggest challenge is how to get some of these other plastics, right? And the other sort of equally problematic thing, and everybody experiences this, is, you know, the clam shells, the coat hangers, and those outlier plastics. And, you know, the public considers plastic as plastic is plastic. So, you know, you can message till you're blue in the face, and it does help, but you're always going to have to deal with the slippery nature of plastics. And so, you know, keeping it simple, right? Number 1 and 2 only, bottles and jugs only. You know, we leave a lot on the table. So how do you manage maximizing your ability to get that stuff out of the waste stream and recycled with keeping it working, right? So there's that. And to the technology piece, we have found that stationary compactors work very well, believe it or not, with plastic bottles. You can, you know, we were going, some of our sites were weekly pulls on 40-yard or 30-yard enclosed roll-offs with plastic bottles. You know, it's a lot of air you're hauling. And when you can compact that, you know, we can go from weekly to, you know, every month or a month and a half, right? So you really gain, it's got a lot of spring, you know, that material, but it also compacts very well with the right equipment. So, you know, I would say if you have compaction capabilities, think about your materials and where you get the most bang for your buck. And plastic is one of those spots.
Excellent. Joe, question for you. Since you see such high traffic on the weekends, have you considered closing on another day instead?
No, the thought with the Sunday was just looking at, you know, with all the bordering counties being closed on Sundays, that's when we know, you know, we're getting a lot of people coming from out of those counties in to use our facilities. The other issue there is those other counties that have drop-offs, you know, they're kind of like Caleb's drop-off where they only take bags, they don't take bulky items, and we do. So that's another issue with people coming from out of county. But we really haven't looked at closing any other days other than Sunday.
Okay, yeah, we're closed Wednesdays, well, only 8 centers, so 4 are open all the time, but we are open half a day on Wednesday or on Sunday, and from 1 to 2 is our busiest hour of any time. And I think, to your point, our benefit, I mean, I'm not saying we're closing on Sundays, don't somebody spread rumors to my people, but would be that we don't have to have a hauler come out, you know, because we do our own hauling. So the drivers work Monday through Friday, but if there's a center that gets overrun, they have to come out, and that's overtime. And, you know, that there's nowhere they can take it, so they end up parking it here. So that would be part of our argument for sure, is that you can't take it.
We're in a similar situation. There's nowhere to haul it to on a Sunday. So most of the drivers spend Monday trying to play catch up with the backlog of containers that they have behind the wall.
Yep, us too. I try to convince people all the time that complain to me because they go every Monday morning at 8, and I say, just don't go on Monday. I can't tell you what else to do. That's the worst time to go. So another question for you, Joe. Someone asked specifically about what you do with the oyster shells or where they go.
So each one of the sites, we have cans available. We have a contractor who goes around. He kind of does all kinds of different tasks for the county, but he'll go around and he picks those up, and then he takes them. We have a bunker at our landfill, or South Wake landfill, where the transfer station used to be, and then also overflow area. And then currently the the state is still coming to pick those up, and that bunker gets full.
So one question for everybody, but it says some cities wish that they could add HHW collection events for their municipality, in addition to maybe the ones that the county might have. How do you think it is necessary, or do you think it is necessary, and how can they work with the counties on coordinating? Is there any advice you'd give on this topic? Caleb, you do HHW event, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. You know, I would encourage all your municipalities within your jurisdiction to offer HHW collection. You know, that is one area, I think, you know, everywhere, at least in North Carolina, where we're falling short when in terms of diversion. And you know, permanent HHW centers, you know, that's a great solution, but it costs a lot of money. That's a very expensive endeavor, and that's the rub right there. And so the more that your unit's local government can support, even if it's one event annually, it'll help a lot. You know, when we hold our events, we find that our, you know, Salisbury City is our county seat, and they're close to our processing center operation. We get a lot of city folks out here and welcome them. I mean, it's great to have everyone involved, but you know, the more you can spread the love around, the better it'll be for your budget. I think that's a good first step.
Yeah. We're sort of, we don't have 1 year event. We have 9 events a year. So we don't have a permanent cycle. We don't do one event. So we have one a month for 9 months. And our town residents can use it, but the towns don't pay into it. So we've talked before about sort of a price share structure of, you know, this percentage of your residents come here and you pay this percentage of the bills at the end, because we have to contract that out. Because they currently don't offer, they used to offer 1-day events and they don't. I don't know if any of them are on here, but so, you know, I just wonder where all that waste is going. Like you said, Caleb, it's HHW is really something that we're falling short of, because it is really expensive to manage that waste.
Might be going to Apex.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Might be going to Apex, our South Wake HHW.
Hey, if you get a decal, you know, you get a decal. Anyway, so yeah, so they're probably going to Apex, that's true. So Caleb, another question for you. Someone said those aluminum cans look like money, and perhaps you could talk about what the most valuable commodity is right now. Just since you're in a, you know, you're separating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the big secret. If you work within government and you're collecting recyclables, those recyclables with high consistent value, you won't see very much. So, you know, that beautiful bale of aluminum, you know, that comes infrequently. So just know that, you know, we're in the business of waste diversion, and make no mistake, this is not a money-making endeavor. This is a cost of doing business. And so, you know, you need to couch your program on service and on environmental health, those, you know, environmental gains, and just, you know, public service offerings, not the dollars. We don't see a whole lot of those pretty bales of aluminum.
Yeah. One plug I'll make for anybody, if I am like a broken record now, but everybody should be doing waste characterization studies or recycling characterization studies if you can. I mean, it's expensive, you've got to put money into it, but that'll help you manage your programs better, because you've got to know what's coming in. And you can use national or state data, but once you finally see what's coming into your centers, that's when you start to develop, you know, programs that are more meaningful to your residents. Because we started C&D, Joe. I mean, we did a waste characterization study and saw how much C&D was going to the landfill, and we started that small, and that's taken off, and we're expanding and expanding because, you know, a lot of people doing at-home projects and stuff. But we wouldn't have even focused on that if it wasn't for the data we got. So
Yeah. Wake County did a study last year, so if anybody wants to see a copy of that, we're willing to share it.
yeah, Chatham does a Wake County Wake County does a waste characterization study every 3 years, or composition, whatever you want to call it. So we're getting ready to do one now, but we did our first recycling characterization study last year. So we could share that too with anybody who wants to know. Drop-off recycling is much different than curbside recycling, as we know. So we learned a lot from that.
I'd recommend that, you know, everybody talk with their MRF and ask them to do a recycling composition study as well.
Yep. Yep, for sure. So we have 5 minutes left, but we have one question left on here so far. So this, Joe, was to you, but I think that I can answer it too, and I'm not sure about Caleb, but it was about your waste verification form and sort of, does someone go to the person's house, or what kind of follow-up comes of that? If somebody thinks it is suspicious, talk about that.
Yeah, so basically we ask the site attendants to have everybody who's bringing in a load of construction material to fill it out. They can also ask anybody to fill it out. If they're suspicious, somebody might be a hauler. We have a limit of how many mattresses somebody can bring. So if somebody's trying to bring more than that, we ask them to fill that out. Once it's filled out, all those forms go to me. I review them all with the Wake County property records. And then if they check out, the forms are recycled. If they don't check out and they somebody ends up on our contractor list because they brought in construction material and they're not a homeowner, those get saved and that goes on our list. And then we wait to see if somebody calls to question why they're on the list. We keep that on in case I never need to refer to it, or somebody says, hey, that wasn't me, or whatever more I need to investigate on that.
Excellent. Yeah, so we also have a similar form. We call it a policy acknowledgement log, or a large load form. So we limit the load that someone can bring in at one time to basically a pickup truck size load. At our centers, that's one way we try to reduce commercial vehicles in there as well. But all those forms get sent to our enforcement officer, and then he will follow up. So they'll research and see, A, do they have a decal? B, do they have a business, including an at-home business or a farm, which counts as a business? And then if they have to, they will go out there. Usually they'll follow up with a phone call first, to see. And if they have to keep investigating, they will. But, it's a pretty big red flag when someone brings in 4 toilets and then they happen to have a bath and tile business. So, you can do a lot of research online before you have to talk to someone to follow up. But yeah, so we do a similar thing here.
Yeah, we also use the Secretary of State Business Registry site.
Excellent. Yeah, we have access to DOT license plates, so we can search that way as well. I don't know how we have that, but we do. So yeah, any other questions? So someone wants to see your waste characterization study, so we'll get you that person, but we can also, I don't know, Mary, do you guys send out their contact information with the follow-up email? Let's say yes.
We sure will.
Okay, great. That way you can reach out directly if you want to any of us. So we have just 2 minutes left. I had one personal question I was wondering. You guys kind of both touched on it a little bit, but how do you communicate with residents who don't speak English as their first language? Joe, you have some forms that are in Spanish and English.
Yeah, and then we also have members of our call center are bilingual, so if we need to, we can get them on the phone.
Okay, so if you're out dealing with someone you can't communicate to, you could use them as a translator?
Yep.
Okay, what about you, Caleb?
We don't have an established call center, but we do have folks on staff during sort of the 9 to 5 business hour that we can call for a number of languages. Really depends on the language. We do have some multilingual print material as well. Honestly, we don't find that as a huge challenge. We seem to be able to provide our services to all of the population with ease. I don't think the language barrier has been that problematic for us. But again, you guys are wrestling with some complicated throttling of site usage issues, and we'll get there with population growth, and it becomes more problematic, I think, as your sites become more complicated.
Sure. So I think we're at 2:30 right now. We can stay on for questions. None of us have a hard stop, so if anybody has a question we didn't get to yet, you can go ahead and put those in there. And those questions will be on the recording, so we'll record until there's no more questions. But other than that, if you need to go, thank you for being here. And like Mary said, they'll get that email out with the recording, get it posted, and we'll send the contact information out. So thanks to Joe and Caleb for being here.
Thank you.
Round of applause. I'm sure everyone else is clapping wherever they are too. Excellent. So we'll see if there's any other questions coming in. So I just wanted to speak, I mean, I did ask that question about language because we run into it here and we don't have anyone on staff. We're looking at getting a telelanguage, you know, contract where you can call a number and have them translate for you. But yeah, we really don't have anybody on staff who could, someone speaks like a little bit, but not enough to explain complicated things like waste, you know? So I was wondering, we're looking at getting a contract for that and to do some translation services.
Yeah, and I know the Wake County has a contract with an interpreter service, you know, that they use through Health and Human Services. And if we needed to, we could use that one as well.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking to get one that's the telelanguage and then also translation services that you can have like basically on contract. So when you need something, it's not a whole, you don't have to constantly get quotes and stuff. It's like, you know, we just send this to you and translate it out.
Yeah, but I would definitely check with your Health and Human Services. They may already have something in place.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That definitely came into effect when we had, you know, with COVID and emergency operations going on.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So one general question actually came in before the session, but I think it's a great question. What are the biggest needs of drop-off center attendants to run the center as smoothly and efficiently as possible? So what do the attendants need to do their job as well as possible?
I think for ours, the number one feedback that they want to see is that, you know, clear guidance of the rules that they need to enforce. You know, I think because especially with the, you know, we try to keep things clear as possible, you know, like any resident can use the facility to dump whatever waste, except if they're a homeowner, or except if it's construction material, they have to be the homeowner. So that's kind of the guidance there, that we try to keep that clear, and we try to keep the signage as clear as that too.
And it sounds silly, but a positive attitude. You know, you need to keep your folks on track, because it's so easy as a public servant in any context, right, to feel underappreciated. And I think from a management level, just to keep those folks puffed up, you know, it's remind them how important their job is and how important they are to the image of the county as a whole, or your municipality as a whole, your organization. So can't underemphasize, you know, caring for those folks and making them feel appreciated so that they can be that ambassador for you.
So one question, or a couple questions about mentioning the health and safety of your workers, and that Joe touched on the mask issue, like the mask drama, I think is what you called it. But how are you keeping, or have been keeping your employees safe during COVID time?
Well, ours all being contracted, that was kind of on GFL. They went out and bought them all the neck gaiters and then provide them all the PPE and cleaning supplies they need. So that was kind of left on GFL to handle, since they were all GFL employees. And then each site, there were signs put out reminding people of social distancing, which the users don't pay attention to, but we try to remind the staff, you know, whenever possible, you know, you don't need to stand there at that pre-crusher opening. Take a step back when somebody's using it to protect yourself and wear your mask. We can't make these residents wear a mask, but, you know, we just put the focus on the employees protecting themselves.
Yeah. What about you, Caleb?
So, you know, we provide all the PPE within the department. We've had lots of support from our emergency response folks, EMS folks, to keep that material, that PPE available. We have implemented some sort of temporary operational changes. You know, we take cash at our convenience centers. We have rolled out more credit card pay options. We had some remote sites that were cash only. So we, took the opportunity to, on the back of the social distancing, to do more credit card machine rollout. So we've done that. And just, transaction protocol, it sounds archaic maybe, but we have a table where folks will put their payment down and we do a step back scenario, and it takes a little longer and a lot of our public gets excited about it, but it's kind of what we have to do. The alternative is to shut the gate, right? So our folks have been able to manage.
Yeah, we're in the same boat as Joe, pretty much. Contractors, supply the PPE. We did have a supply from emergency management that we could also give out to them, but yeah, we had a lot of complaints in the beginning, and like Joe said, you don't have to stand in one place all day. We don't want you to do that anyway. You shouldn't be anyway. But now, even more importantly, direct people as best you can without having to go right up to their car. We do have a decal system, so they have to track decals, but you can see it from a good distance, more than 6 feet. And we did talk internally, or like with the attendants, so they're not there to help every person. They don't have time to do that, but really, making sure that if they are helping someone, that both people are wearing masks. If they're helping to, get someone's trash or whatever, and washing their hands frequently. They all have access to a sink and a bathroom and soap, so making sure that they are wearing gloves, which they're provided 3 different kinds of gloves, those kinds of things. So, but of course we still get, we're the ones that get the complaints about people not wearing them right or not wearing them at all or whatever, and we're all struggling.
We recently had discussions for developing QR codes for the various handouts that we have at the sites. So if somebody doesn't, an attendant handing them a paper copy, like, here, scan this QR code and then you have it. So
that's really interesting. So that actually goes into this next question, which is, I know, Joe, you guys have a whole education staff at Wake County, but they were asking about how to engage customers with so few public events and not really being able to be face to face. What's some, ways that you've been able to reach customers or tried to reach customers during this time?
So our education staff, they used to do the public landfill tours, the tours with the MRF, go to schools. We actually had our education specialist that worked with the schools. She actually left like a month into COVID to go take care of her parents. So that space has been vacant. So there hasn't been much going on with schools, and most of the schools nobody's in the school right now anyways. But for the landfill tour, I don't think it's done yet, but they did a video of a landfill tour with using a drone and, people stationed wherever the points of interest are on the tour. I believe that's still being edited, and then will be released. And then I think there's some different tools that they use online for the MRF tour. The only thing that we had that was face-to-face while all this was going on was we did have a compost bin sale that had to be face-to-face with people coming to pick up their bins, but it was just ask the people to stay in their car. Everybody wore PPE and just loaded the bins in the back of the car for the person, so they didn't have to even get out of the car. So.
Cool. What about you, Caleb? Outreach education, event type stuff.
So we've obviously throttled that super way back. We are also composing a video sort of informational landfill recycling. Or we want to do like a 20-minute extended version for the outreach. And then we're going to do some edited condensed versions just for marketing pieces. So we've got that in the hopper as well. Remarkably, we're getting calls still for folks wanting to tour. So, reluctant to turn these folks down, but we sort of have to right now. And we have not done a lot of this, a lot of the virtual. We probably could capitalize more on that with some of the groups. But no, we've been impacted significantly in terms of outreach because of the COVID situation.
Yeah, us too. I mean, obviously, I'm the recycling and education specialist, so my year last year was much different than ever before. And we ended up in November. We did have a shredding event, a document shredding event, which we had canceled one in April, and so we had it in November, but it was bare bones. People, you know, we couldn't help you. You had to bring someone to help you if you needed it. We weren't going to go in your trunk and touch your box and then you take your box back, you know, all that stuff. It was just me here and the guy from the shredding company, just trying to manage traffic. But yeah, way scaled down. If it was normal time, we would have had, you know, much more going on, education, answers, all that kind of stuff.
Well, of course, when we host our household hazardous waste events, you know, we take advantage of those opportunities with the print medium. So
yeah. Joe, I think your QR code idea is awesome. I also like the idea of putting it on signs at the centers, and then I wonder, like, if it's on a sign and people want a copy of that sign, could they, you know, QR code that and take them to a copy of that sign? Not that anyone looks at our signs, but they're there.
Right. Yeah, my thought was to give all the site attendants like a laminated sheet with each code, so they can just hold that up, because we have these here, which is, we call these recycling guides, which basically list everything we take and where it's taken. That, and then of course the trash pass flyers, and then for materials that we don't take, we have a handout with that. So there's multiple things that if they had that one sheet that they can hold on to and just hold up that code and say, here, scan this, that's where you need to go.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Well, we still have a few people on here, but we have no more questions. So I think we might wait a minute. Question. Has anyone been able to go from curbside to collection centers or from collection centers to curbside? And can you share the pros and cons or lessons learned?
So Wake County has never had any curbside programs. They just leave that up to the municipalities. So everything, all we do is just all the drop-offs.
Us too. What about you, Caleb?
same.
Yeah, we're all just heavy drop-off people here. But there are people who have done it. There definitely are people out there who would be better resources than us. Whoever sent, I'm not sure if you're in North Carolina or South Carolina, but I'd contact the state agency because they would know who's most recently made the change. I don't know of anyone going from curbside back to collection centers, but from the other, I have heard the other way around. So I would recommend talking to your state folks to get in contact with those people. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Good time talking about collection centers. And yeah, have a good day, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.